Okay. How im- how frequently do you have breakfast foods at dinner time?
That's a good question. I've been on a cereal kick for the last month, and I've been eating cereal and milk. Um, at all hours. But I definitely don't eat eggs. You know, very late in the day. I don't know what else you might consider breakfast food specifically. I eat a lot of toast with butter on it.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
So when you wake up in the morning, do you have a clear schedule of the day ahead of you, a loose schedule of the day ahead of you, or do you find out as you go along what's going to happen?
It depends. Usually, I'm just gonna say like I'm gonna use the word kick again, but I get into like a groove where I'm sometimes I'll set up a schedule the night before, and then that actually kind of makes it easier to get up and just start like addressing the things to do. But generally, when I'm not, that's my like optimistic answer. The real thing I do is uh just I wake up and I don't have a plan and I go through the day and then it's 1 o'clock and then it's 4 o'clock and then it's 6 o'clock.
Do you have a harder time going to sleep or waking up?
I've had a hard time doing both, but I think I have a harder time waking up.
Okay. If I were
God, I love the hat.
if I were to suggest this hat design to you, what
Hmm
would be your objection to it if you were going to come up with a practical objection? What's wrong with it?
I would say that it doesn't keep your head cool, and it doesn't really seem to keep your face cool.
Well, I'd point out that it directs all the rain directly onto your head.
Mhm.
If you went out in the rain, that's a good point. It doesn't keep your head cool, but on the other hand, it could keep your head cool if your head would get stuffy in a hat.
That's this is the constant quandary of hat wearers.
It is well said. It is the constant quandary of hat wearers. Okay. Well, it's actually the constant quandary of visor wearers. I don't know if you heard the big news. I'm
Yeah.
bringing the visor back.
Hmm.
If you wear it at a jaunty
Oh,
angle like this, it's hip hop.
it is like very the shadow on one side of your face. You could even almost cover one eye with it.
You could like a pirate. You'd be like Left
Yeah.
Eye Lopez.
Yeah.
That you
It's
really
like
have to turn it this way, I think. So. Okay, enough about the
oh,
hat.
it's
so
so captainish.
so
It's like
do you remember the difference between fourth grade and fifth grade? Which one was better?
oh yeah. 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 Fifth grade was significantly worse than fourth grade. Only because we had a teacher that our class I was in like the middle I think anyway as far as I can like assess I think I was in like the middle of the like there's the good class there's not the great class and there's I think or maybe we were the shitty class I don't know but our teacher I think every other day by the time the year really started going would actually break down and just start crying in the class because we were so poorly behaved.
You were in the brown group, weren't you? There was the gold group, the
Ah,
silver group, and the brown group. You were in the brown group.
could be.
Could be. Okay. What's more important to you as a value? Um, attaining attaining a goal, or uh, winning winning favor and positive perceptions from people.
Assuming they conflict attaining a goal.
Okay. Um. So
Do you want me to talk about why that is instead of like
yeah,
just
sure, sure. Let me hear why.
attaining a goal because winning the praise of others doesn't necessarily mean that you've achieved anything that's worth getting. Because you could be surrounded by people um, who are in some kind of groupthink and have and are just um, are confirming something that isn't necessarily true about what ought to be done about any given thing.
Okay. Um, what what's your relationship with um, introverted intuition like? Do you feel as though things are better expressed, uh, or not? Do you feel as though, are you more likely to um, sacrifice breadth and depth for clarity, or clarity for breadth and depth?
Well, there's a difference between what I'm more likely to sacrifice and what I wish I were um, less likely to sacrifice.
Okay.
Um, I'm almost plagued when I care about something with with um, with getting too wired up into the breadth and depth um, to the point that I can be in really important situations, interviews, things like that, and not have a clear idea of how I'm going to approach a question. Um, and sometimes that can get me into trouble because I take up all the time um, and I either didn't answer the question or I answered the question and I just didn't care and kept talking even though the thing I said was already sufficient.
Okay. Um, so you are endowed with a MacArthur Genius Grant of $1 million, and you're told to use this money for some sort of public art project. What? Walk me through some possible things you might be thinking about.
Okay, so that's tough. It's $1 million. I just took a grant writing class. It was a 7-week thing. But $1 million, I don't know how I'm going to use that. I really have
Let's
to.
make it 10 million to make it more
Okay.
interesting. 10 million.
Damn. Okay. Well, 10 million. At that point, I can hire someone who has a really good idea. Hire another person who has hire a short team of people that have expertise in the area of whatever this idea is.
You're gonna subcontract out your genius?
Yeah. Yeah. Every. And I don't really know why.
It just seems like the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah, I mean, because otherwise, I have to do some interesting legwork of having a vision and having like an internal propulsion as far as like this is my idea, this is what I want, and then like punch through into the known world and make that happen. I would not that I don't think that I can't do that. I think that I would be more comfortable doing that if I were sort of separated from it, which I think is even kind of like a self-defeating. I don't think it's like a well-adjusted thing about myself, but I think that it just like practically it would be the first thing I would try to do. I'd be like, oh, I can't use this money. I don't deserve this. I don't know how to use this in a way that'll be meaningful or productive. Maybe someone else will. And I think that I would be more comfortable curating like out of so many ideas which one I think really like had the funk. If I thought like, yeah, this idea is too this person has this, kind of like shallow vision of I'm going to create social impact with the power of music. It's like, oh, okay, I don't really want to do that. I can judge like,
Here's my thinking.
yeah.
My public art project is to go out to such fancy meals for over the course of a year that I spend $10 million on my dining out in 1 year. So I have to go to really fancy restaurants. Of course, I'll live stream it. That's what makes it public art.
Can I thought of an answer which is a little bit more interesting to me.
Okay.
I would try to do something that involves the mass organization of very large groups of people um, in some kind of um, indeterminate, open score, like improvisatory musical exercise, which is meant for musicians or non-musicians, and try somehow to organize like a whole city block or something of people to participate in what would have to be like or maybe not have to be a super complex or complicated like
Okay,
moral
okay, okay, okay,
exercise, but
okay. Listen,
okay,
listen,
sorry.
listen.
Hmm.
You are the cruise director of the Love Boat. Now, I'm going
Right
to
on.
give you a little bit of a fortune teller heads up. This upcoming Love Boat cruise trip, it's subject to Murphy's Law. What can go wrong is going to go wrong. It's going to be just bad luck trip or whatever. So, what are you going to do in advance to prepare, knowing this, to sort of batten down the hatches and stuff? And how do you think you're going to avoid major problems? What kind of problems are the most major to avoid, and which ones are the least major to avoid?
Okay, so if I'm just like take me through the a love
You're
cruise
the Love
is
Boat cruise
people
director.
love boat. Okay, but the point of the cruise basically is that people get on the cruise without necessarily
Singles.
having,
Yeah,
yeah, singles get
singles
on. Okay,
get on
okay,
the cruise to meet other singles.
right. So having private quarters, having some kind of like access to food and maybe like a bathroom schedule or something where basically just anything you can do to ensure that people to make sure that it's possible for
To hump? Is that where you're going with that, Chris Chapin? You've disconnected. Or perhaps it was me. Who knows? I don't think it was me, though. Let's see. How's my internet look? Oh, fine, Eric, fine. The internet looks fine. Chris Chapin's the one who's got the problem, not you. Let's refresh anyway, just to be sure.
okay, I don't know what happened.
That's okay. Do you want too many bags of sand or too few bags of sand?
I want too many bags of sand.
Okay. Why?
Yeah, I do, because I might need them, I might want them, or there might be differences in the bags of sand. They might not be totally identical. Like the basic point is that if I have too few bags of sand, I'm not imagining this is for any purpose. But if I have too few bags of sand, I'm gonna miss the ones that I never got the chance to meet.
I mean, the fact that there's too few means that you must have some express need for them, right?
Right. Okay.
I mean,
Um.
I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud too.
Oh
But
yeah. No. 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 I want to entertain that.
um, oh,
Um.
okay, let me ask you some TI questions to get this TI thing out of the way.
Okay.
Uh, if if not P, then not. If not P, then Q, and not Q. What can we conclude?
We can't conclude anything.
Okay. Um, if P, then Q or R. P and not R. What can we conclude?
P and Q.
Okay. If all tomatoes are red and some red things enjoy watching football, is it necessarily the case that some tomatoes enjoy watching football?
It's not necessarily the case.
Okay. Um, if my hat is way cooler than your lack of a hat, And your lack of a hat makes you feel deeply ashamed of yourself. How do you feel right now?
I don't know because you didn't give a thing.
Okay, fine.
But I guess I'd feel shameful.
Deeply,
I
deeply ashamed, right?
deeply, deeply ashamed.
Right. Because
Hmm.
obviously you're going to be comparing yourself to me. You're going to be saying, shit, I should have thought about headwear before coming here, and I didn't.
Hmm. Hmm.
How silly of me. Anyhow, are you more likely to be described as funny or a good listener?
Good listener.
Are you more likely to be described as loving or fun?
Loving.
Um, are you more likely to be described as forgiving or fair?
Forgiving.
Okay. Do you think people's descriptions of you are generally accurate?
Um, I don't know if I trust whether or not I feel that people's descriptions of me are generally accurate. It could be that I have a desire to be perceived one way or not perceived another way. And so maybe I should trust others' descriptions of me to be accurate more than I think of my own idea of myself.
Well,
But
how are
the
you?
answer is no.
How do you feel right now? What's your emotional feeling?
I feel a little bit nervous, and I feel also just like jittery, a little bit because that having to do with I just had a little bit of caffeine. But I'm watching myself very intently, and I'm wanting to be playful, and I'm wanting to be attentive.
Okay. How do you think I'm feeling right now?
I don't think you give a shit about very much. That's not to say I think that you're like very callous, but I think you're just. I think that I mean that I think that I'm probably attributing to you um a lot of ideas of maybe what you're thinking about me, and I think that what you're doing is totally separate from that. And I think that you're just chilling. I don't know.
Okay. Um, so, do you think you'd be better served in a job that required you to figure out what and explain to somebody what complicated legal documents mean, or would you be better at a job where you help people come to terms with complex emotional problems?
I would help people come to terms with complex emotional problems.
Hmm. Okay. Um, so let's say I came to you and I said I have an emotional problem. I am angry about. Um, I'm still struggling and troubled about the suicide of a friend. I actually did have a friend who killed himself quite a long time ago. Now it was almost 20 years ago now. But let's say it was more recent than that, and I came to you and I said, I'm struggling with this. I feel guilty. How would you help me?
Well, I don't know. It's a little bit weird to do that hypothetically because what I would do is I would ask you like more details about.
Well, I mean, I do somewhat feel. I don't really feel so strongly
Okay.
anymore, but I always have felt genuine guilt about it.
So,
Not that I did
yeah.
anything wrong, but that I didn't do something that I could have done to be more
Okay. So how
helpful.
old is it okay if I ask you the actual questions?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so how old were you when you found when this happened? Did you
Uh,
find out immediately? How old was the other person?
no, I was about 32, I think, and he was the
Okay.
same age, and I found out about 4 or 5 months after he killed himself.
Did you grow up together
Yeah,
or in the same place?
yeah,
So did you know all the same people?
yeah, sort of,
Generally,
yeah. And
yeah.
we were closer. We were close, pretty close childhood friends, and then we sort of separated ways as we went to adulthood. And I didn't see him very often, you know.
Hmm. Well, then, do you think that it makes sense for you to feel guilty, or are you kind of perplexed by why you would or might feel guilty?
Well, I mean, I think it makes sense in regards to the fact that I was on some level, I guess, aware that he was having a. I mean, I was aware that he was having a rough go. Like
Yeah.
he was struggling in life. I didn't know the depth to which he was struggling, I guess, but I didn't. It didn't make me go make more of an effort to spend time with him. Probably it made me like, oh, I don't want to go deal with that, you know.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I understand that. And it, well, there's one thing that's important to assume, which is that you might not have made a difference, or at least to entertain, is that you might not have made a difference in the actual event, or in like the way things that happened the way they did. So um, what you've got to reckon with then is whether you what you've got to reckon with anyway is whether you think, I don't know, it depends on what you think your role ought to have been. It depends on your expectations of yourself in the past. And I don't think that necessarily the fact that I think that the fact that you didn't do more is because you didn't know something about the situation. And the fact that you didn't know something about the situation is not something for you to be guilty about. Or if you had, or you, like you say, you knew, but the fact that you didn't interpret it in a particular, set of ways that would have led you to acting differently, isn't ultimately the essentially what I'm getting at is that all of this is out of your control and his control and everybody's control. And so maybe, I don't know, this is also very rushed and I feel like kind of wrong doing this
Okay, let's stop this because I want to try a
sure.
different angle now. Anyway,
Okay.
um, so can
Can I
you?
just? I think I was about to get. I'm sorry. I think that if someone were in this situation, I would say that finding respect for the decision um, would be a way to love that person, love what they did, and to not be caught in this like this whatever. Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. Continue or change or
So,
something.
if you were to explain to me the difference between felony murder and regular murder, can you do that for me? Do you know the difference?
Uh, Felony murder has to do with the federal government, and regular murder doesn't.
Okay. Do you know the difference between murder and manslaughter?
Manslaughter happens by accident, so
Okay.
it you don't intend for the person to die while you're murdering them.
Okay, so what's the difference between manslaughter and just an actual accident? Like if I get into a car crash, um, and it's ruled nobody's fault, let's say, um, maybe a blind corner or something like that. I don't know.
Mhm.
Then what makes that not manslaughter?
Did someone die in the accident?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. Um, interesting. All right. So you, I'm guessing that you understand pretty well what I'm trying, what sort of
Sure, yeah, I
cognitive
know.
function stuff I'm getting at when I'm asking these kind of questions, right?
I'm trying to give you as real of an impression of
Sure.
how I'm dealing with the questions as
So,
possible.
so we both know that you're giving me answers that are consistent with NEFI.
Okay.
Um,
Hmm.
and the thing is, um, my temptation is to type you as INFP because your TI is seems better than polar, but you seem much too extroverted for an INFP, and I don't feel particularly supervised by you.
Hmm.
So I'm left with a bit of a quandary here. I'd like to ask some more TI questions.
Okay.
Um, okay, let's do some missing generalization questions. So here's an example. You can't go in there. You don't have a hat on. The missing generalization would be only people with hats are allowed in. Okay.
Hmm.
So how about this one now? You'll never fit in there. That's only 3 feet wide.
Um,
And that's a terrible one. I'm sorry. Let me give you a different one.
okay, sorry.
I just had a brain failure for a moment. So okay, let me give you a different one. Um,
Only things less than 3 feet wide can fit
those
in.
people must be gardeners. They're pushing a lawnmower.
All gardeners push lawnmowers. Wait, no, I'm sorry. No, all people who push lawnmowers are gardeners.
Okay, correct. How about that must be from Aunt Judy. It has uh, colorful happy face stickers on it.
All things that have colorful happy face stickers are from Manchurian.
Okay, can you phrase it in terms of only?
Can you say the thing again?
Sure. That letter must be from Aunt Judy. It has happy face stickers on it.
Okay, 1 second. I can say things with happy face stickers only come from Judy, but I don't think that's what you want me to do.
Only Aunt Judy sends happy face sticker
Oh, okay.
envelopes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Mhm.
How about this one? Uh, they will not be permitted on board the plane. They have COVID.
Only people without COVID will be boarded on the plane.
Okay. Can you phrase it in terms of no?
No people that have COVID will be boarded onto the plane.
Okay. Cool. Let me try one of these kind. If there are 3 pickles in a in an amphibian and 3 amphibians in a squirtle, how many pickles are there in a squirtle?
9.
Okay. Fine. So the thing is, I'm tempted to say I think you're an ENTP actually, but
Mm-hmm.
your self-reporting answers are all suggestive of FI stuff. When I ask you questions like distinguish between this and this and this, um, the your answer is not TI in its approach. I think you're skilled at TI questions, but my gut is. I mean, overall, what I'm thinking is you seem most like an ENFP in your answers and everything, and affect, but in terms of TI, it's more like INFJ ish, or maybe kind of weakish ENTP ish, or I don't know. It could be eight
Yeah.
slot, could be INFP. It doesn't seem like polar to me.
Mm-hmm.
So now tell me your thoughts. You've watched enough of me, have been around long enough that you must have plenty of thoughts about this.
Sure. Well, there's a different kinds of factors here. One is that I've watched you for a long time, and it means something to me, even though I don't. It doesn't. What your what your feeling is of me. is important uh, to me in a way that it's not important that you like think this of me or that of me, but because I've spent a lot of time listening to you talk, um, I I don't know. So there's that. There's also the fact that I sort of feel like there's a certain way that it makes sense to talk to you in. I'm not really interested in um I'm not really interested in talking in a way that I don't know. I'm really not sure. I'm not sure of my motivations, but I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm getting like stuck into some
I
brainstorm.
suspect you're an ENFP
Hmm.
who's got a good grasp of how the TI questions work in general and has had. I noticed when I asked you one of them, you sat back and you sort of closed your eyes and you like really paid attention, right?
Yeah.
Um, that's that was indicative, probably not of front stack TI, but maybe I could be wrong. In general, you did get the first TI question I asked wrong, which was an only thing. I don't remember exactly what it was, but you got it wrong.
Okay.
And you did pretty well. You did well with the missing generalizations, and so I mean, my inclination is to type you as ENFP with practice TI. What do you self type yourself coming in?
Sure. I self-type myself as INFP.
Oh, it's INFP. Okay.
Yeah. Um, I am without wanting to step on the exercise of this as a typing. Um, I'm I've thought about it a lot. I'm very confident and comfortable with that. I think that SE polar is much more applicable to the. I think that I've seen the difference
Hey,
between SE seventh and SE eighth.
you're preaching to the choir. It's much happier reality for me for you to be an INFP, and really the only reason I've settled on ENFP is just NI about your affect. You seemed extrovert. You seem to have a lot to say, but of course
Oh, sure.
that's your tool function, you know. So um, INFP makes perfect sense. That explains the TI 8 slot, and that's much more satisfying to me than ENFP.
Okay.
So
Well, that's
fantastic.
good. I'm glad that you're not dissatisfied with the fact that I had that like I had a conception of myself before like
No,
getting into this discussion.
no. And I think you're right. I think you're an INFP.
Uh-huh. So let me ask you a little bit because I think in the time since we've been talking, there have been I think a couple moments where I feel like you've asked me um, or I don't know, or you asked me what I'm trying to get at, and sort of what's even happening right now, is sort of this um, turbulent uh, brain fog that kind of the sometimes when I get into it, even answering a simple kind of a question, um, I think that I don't know. And then now I'm at the point where I sort of want to undermine the fact that I wanted to ask anything about it because why the fuck do I care? Because I or like why what
Okay,
am
well,
I going to ask you how not to do this? Am I going to ask you do you like does this affect your opinion of me that I do this? Am I
uh,
going to ask you what do you think of people that do this? It's like I don't really know.
the thing
I'm just
is,
kind of nervous.
the thing that's interesting, of course, is that was a good example, and there have been a couple now that I think about it of me feeling supervised. First is when I use something so serious for just an example in a test. That's very FI polar of me, right?
Hmm.
And I kind of realized it, but at that point, it's too late. Well, we might as well use it. It's going to be useful. It's actually a thing, you know. But there was that moment I felt supervised, and then right now, whenever you were talking about, I'm not sure what you were talking about, but when you started, I thought like I felt like, oh, I'm going to get in trouble or something. So and then I realized, oh wait, no, you're. I'm not sure what you're talking about exactly. I don't think you're saying. You said there's some turbulence. Like I was gonna be like, oh shit, he's gonna say like, are you emotionally upset by this, Eric, or something? And I'd be like, I don't think so. Am I? But I don't know if that's where you're going or not.
I don't think it was. Um, it's interesting that I'm supposedly we're saying I'm an any tool user, and a lot of the time when I'm in discussions with anyone about anything, I mean, there's a difference when you get comfortable and you know a person. There's like it's easier for that. It's easier to just like spin and bounce off whatever. But a lot of the time, um, if I'm in a lesson or if I'm in an interview or if I'm just whatever it is, usually one on one with someone I don't know very well, I kind of just like I choke. I stop myself from saying something um, which could be very concise, or I just second guess myself so many times that I am just kind of swimming in in circles. Um, and I don't know if it. I think that so part of the reason that we're doing this is because Sean recommended that he that I get typed by you, and I think that he is not convinced that I'm an NE user because um, because a lot of the time, but because it's so easy for me to just like get caught in my throat with something, and then I kind of just swish around for however long I decide that I'm going to let myself swish around, and then I say this person doesn't want to hear me. Like I'm monopolizing this person's time with my nonsense that even I don't care about, and then I just go, and I'm like I don't have anything to say. I think that I don't have anything to say. Um, um, More commonly than or not more commonly, but in a way that makes it's like the talking function
when
hard to
you
believe.
when you have something clogging your throat, so to speak, the thing that's
Yeah.
clogging your throat is extroverted intuition bong resin. Okay, you are as
Hmm.
extroverted intuition as they can possibly get. You are extrovertedly
Sure.
intuiting all over my face.
I know.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not, there's no criticism in that, none at all.
I know. I
I'm
know.
just
It
saying that
just
any
makes me
notion that
laugh.
you're not extroverted intuition can be herefore and forever henceforth smashed as wrong.
Hmm.
You're definitely
Yeah.
extroverted intuition. INFP makes perfect sense. I'm actually rather disappointed in myself that I let myself get carried away with excluding the possibility that you're an introvert just because of your affect
It's
seeming
fine.
seeming extroverted. That's kind of weak of me, but
I mean, yeah, but it's okay.
it's a little different talking to you, knowing that you've been around such a long time and are so aware
Yeah.
of how I do things, right?
Yeah.
I assume you are. So it
Yeah.
makes asking you questions different um, than somebody who's coming because they've gotten mistyped by Dave's superpowers and they're trying to find somebody to type them properly.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Uh,
There's definitely, and that's even something that I really want to like stop from. I mean, I can't not be aware of what you're doing or how you're doing it, or what kinds of things you're looking for in the way that I answer something. But even the decision to try to blockade that is a decision based off of the fact that like I want the typing to be clean, and I don't, I don't want to impose. Um,
It's pretty hard for us to not reveal what types we are, extroverted intuitors especially. Because here's the
uh,
thing. Here's the
mhm.
bottom line. And here's what you keep experiencing. There's this sense within us that if I just keep explaining, eventually I'll hit the thing that rings the bell, whatever it is,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
And then of course the reality is if you just keep explaining, people totally stop listening.
Yeah.
So and of course you countervalue introverted intuition, which is the
Mhm.
concision thing, because you always feel like you're doing a disservice to the whole truth by distilling it down rather than
Mhm.
explaining all the important factors that inform it.
Mhm. Yeah, and part of that even feels like when you say doing a disservice to the whole truth, it almost feels for me like there's some kind of individuation from that. Like I want the thing that pings me when I'm going in a certain direction to finish a sentence. I'm capable of finishing the sentence, but the thing that ricochets and makes me want to do something else is I think of like an imaginary person in an imaginary situation who's going to have an imaginary reaction to whatever it is I'm about to say. Um, and so I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to just agree with what you're saying, but
Wait, so
I have an interest
what you
in.
just described is putting yourself in someone else's shoes,
Yeah.
but instead of putting yourself in my shoes, you put yourself in an imaginary, like general person, third party shoes.
Yeah, and part of that is because I think like I know that someone else could listen to this conversation. Part of it is that even though I have, even when I know you and I know who you are and I have a clear conception of things that I think that you are, I'm wanting to make allowances in case I'm wrong because I don't know everything, but but I want to make allowances that you are a person that I haven't conceived of you being until now.
Hmm.
And so no aspect of that. I mean, let's say there are lots of aspects of that are subject to second guessing. Even if there are some aspects that aren't subject to second guessing, there's lots and lots and lots that aren't.
So that's interesting that it seems to be some implicit concern that you don't want to box me in or reduce
Yeah.
me in your conception of me in advance, and thereby, I mean,
Hmm.
that's
And this
that's
is
that must be difficult to go through life like that.
it's a lot more difficult than just maybe committing a small social faux pas and allowing the results of that to be the results of that. I think I'm terrified that I'm gonna say something a certain way and then someone's gonna like turn around and be like, that made me feel bad, and you need to know why that's gonna make someone feel bad when you say that. And then I'm gonna go, no, I thought of that. I could have thought of that. I'm not I can do that. I can do it. But it's like
Okay, so
uh
Chris, hold on.
yeah.
Pretend you were
Mhm.
in line with me the other day at the gas station. Okay, so I
Okay.
was in line at the gas station to get cigarettes, and there was one person in front of me, right? But it was this lady, and she was being like super annoyingly slow about everything. She wanted to make like separate purchases, and but do I enter my code here or wait? But did I get a discount on this one? It's just like, oh my god, right? So
Hmm.
I'm like, to sigh at her to say basically so
Yep.
she knows that she's annoying me. But I did it when I sighed. I was looking away from her on purpose when I sighed in case she swiveled her head, which I noted from my peripheral vision she did. She swiveled around to look at me while I was looking over here, and so she just swiveled
Hmm.
back around. Now,
Hmm.
would you have felt like bad for the lady?
If I'm just a third person in that situation,
Yeah, you're just hanging out. You're just going
yeah.
hanging out with me, and
Or if I'm in your position,
no. You
I
decided to
see
come
that
to the
happen. I see
store
that
with
happen.
me.
Okay.
You decided to
Yep.
come to the store with me just to hang out and walk with me to get cigarettes. So you're standing next to
Yeah,
me.
but I would make a note not to be mad at you. even though I think that you did the wrong thing, I would make a note to be like, yeah, but that's Eric is in Eric's position. He's not wrong for hurting that woman's
At no
feelings.
point would you think, good, that bitch deserved it.
No, but I would have to put myself in your shoes and feel that and or imagine feeling that and try to be sincere about imagining feeling that if I'm really gonna like if I'm really gonna pay respect to like where you are.
That's
So I mean I guess at some point I would like go through that as like an exercise because it's so damn important to me for some reason. But it's I mean, and I'm not even like immune from being annoyed at someone for taking a really long time. Like if I'm in a rush or if I'm in a bad mood, like hell yeah, I'm gonna be like I could even like I have the capacity to be rude. I have the capacity to be like mean and unjust, like for sure.
and when you do you feel really guilty about it?
I don't think it's productive to feel really guilty about it because I think once you know that that's what you've done, you've like gotten the ticket. Like once you have the awareness that that's what you've done, it's like, okay, I am the better person now because I know that. Knowing that is the reward. It's the thing that's going to make me not a worse person in the future.
Do you feel like you have good control over your feelings?
Yeah, I feel like I have good control over my feelings.
Okay, I have zero control over my feelings. Basically, it's
But don't you think that you have, or I mean, didn't you spend a lot of your life thinking that you had good control over your feelings,
yeah, I did.
specifically because it was this black box in,
Well,
there's this black hole?
my position was that they didn't impact my arguments, so they weren't relevant.
Okay.
And but the reality is, looking at my life, when I am constantly crying when watching TV. Just everything on TV, if it's designed to try to make you cry or feel like, oh, that's so sweet or whatever, tears
Hmm.
just streaming down my face.
Yeah.
There's certain subjects you start talking about it, I'll start getting teary eyed or whatever. I'm like, Dick Vermeil, the football coach.
No.
Well, he was a coach of the Rams, and he was famous for crying in press conferences and being like, "It's just, I'm so proud of these guys. They worked so hard out there, and they won this game for it. And it's just a great win." And like every press
Hmm.
conference, he started off talking normal, and before long, he started going like this. So I've got that kind of lack of FI control that Dick
Hmm.
Vermeil has, but. I don't feel as though it controls my decision making, my emotions, just my
Sure.
affect. You know.
Yeah. It's interesting. A lot of the time I felt this way. I mean, I've noticed this even since like being really young is that I sort of somewhere like deep in like internally I have to make the decision to 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 have whatever kind of emotional reaction I'm going to have. And this is even like almost it's weird to deal with because it almost feels cynical to be like I can watch this really like shitty acting on a daytime television show that like my mom has on in the background, and like the guy goes in and sees his wife and she's dead, and I can be consciously thinking like this acting isn't very convincing.
Act
um,
Getter.
No, I mean the like the I mean the husband who's like
Oh,
having who's like
okay.
yeah, but I can be like, oh, he's not really selling it to me, um, but I can decide that I'm going to. I mean, almost. I'm remembering one specific situation, but I feel like this is a little bit cynical. That I think I even thought like, oh, if I were an actor and I were going to do that, I would just imagine that I would try to imagine as vividly as possible like that happening to me, and then I started like I because I decided to. I started like going through like this really like this really dense dive into this specific kind of like wrenching and well I'm but and then I realized that I don't do this for myself very often or often enough. It's like I have to make a conscious decision to mourn something, and lots of the time I decide to not mourn, and then sometimes something trivial, some kind of arbitrary decision just makes me decide now is the time. Now it's I want to go into this, and it kind of makes you, or it makes me feel like like maybe like I have this like actual heartlessness underneath that, because it's like um
Mm,
if I'm really in control of my, and I'm not always in control of my emotions, but like if
I,
I am, then what is there?
I
I
don't
don't know.
think that's heartlessness, though. It's just saying it's the ability to compartmentalize, right?
Yeah, it's
Um,
suspicious though, or it can be suspicious if you want to look at it that way, or if you're afraid enough of yourself to think about looking at it that way.
so, like, are you aware when you're approaching the dew point of your tender loving spots?
Y- yes, but it's always because it's okay. So there's always a conscious decision to hit that. And but I think that you're asking about the awareness
It doesn't.
of
It doesn't
that
catch. It doesn't take you
decision.
by surprise.
No.
Okay, that's interesting. Emotions tend to take me by surprise.
Hmm.
Um, I felt it yesterday or a couple days ago. It was now maybe 3 days ago now, but I had this sudden like reawakening of general happiness about life that I didn't recognize had been absent for a while until it reappeared, and it just
Hmm.
sort of felt like okay, the the winds have started blowing again. Like if we're on a ship that requires wind to make it move with sails, then if you hit the doldrums, your ship just sits there until the wind picks up again, right? Well, it felt like that with life with COVID a little bit to me, and it's kind of been tripping me out because uh, it's like I can't really remember feelings at all. I can't remember that. Oh, this is this feeling until I re-experience it again.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember feelings well?
Um, that's a really good question. It's it's hard to imagine remembering a feeling without actually experiencing the feeling. I would say that the way that if you asked me if I remembered a feeling, I probably wouldn't be satisfied with answering yes unless I had like during that question like
Relived
tried
it
to
in your
go in
memory.
and
Relived it
sorry,
in your
what?
relived it in your
Yeah, yeah,
memory.
yeah, exactly, yeah. Um, but but I don't know. I don't know if this is different from you, but I like when I'm in that, I click into that familiarity of this is that qualia, like and I can assign it to like past experiences or whatever.
Okay,
But I don't
I'm
remembering a
googling.
feeling doesn't make
I'm
sorry.
googling a word right now.
Okay.
Qualia.
Oh, I hope I'm using that in a way
Is
that
that
makes
what you said?
sense.
Qualia?
Yeah, qualia.
Ah, yeah. Philosophers often use the term qualia um,
I have a definition.
to refer to the introspectively accessible, phenomenal aspects of our mental lives. In this broad sense of the term, it is difficult to deny that there are qualia. Disagreement typically centers on which mental states have qualia, whether qualia are intrinsic qualities of their bearers, and how qualia relate to the physical world both inside and outside the head. The status of qualia is hotly debated in philosophy largely because it is central to a proper understanding of the nature of consciousness. Qualia are at the very heart of the mind-body problem. Interesting. I'll have to read more about qualia.
Sure. Um, the one what I mean, like my like shallow understanding is of a way to get at what I think qualia means is the question, what makes red red? Um,
It's redness,
there's
obviously.
yeah, I know, but yeah,
Red dye
yeah.
number 4.
And there's you know you can what you're demonstrating there is a way of answering that question with a sound that you make, right? And that's representative of, I can, as far as I can assume, that you've like gone into your mind and like somehow experienced something red. Um,
No.
uh, okay, but
I went into my mind
uh,
and thought, what would be funny to say?
yeah. I guess I have egg on my face. But yeah, no, it's not, it's like this is something, so like the things that I find interesting or worth like taking and like putting into my stack of things that I think about is ultimately like they get me to a place where nothing means anything, and I think, oh, that's useful. And I'm not sure this
Why is
the
it
way that I think
useful for nothing to mean anything?
the way that I think about this is CPT. I think in a video comparing INFP and ISFP says something interesting about this, which I won't like quote, but I think it has to do with what I think of as like an SI palette. Um, um, I think that I want to approach something, which, I mean, I'm going to use some confusing language. I'm not confusing, but like that approach is like a universal metric for something for accomplishing. So if I say that like color theory is something that's useful, um, color theory on its own, but when you get into it, just all it's saying is red and green are opposites, blue and orange are opposites. It's something that can be applied um, without prescription. And I think that's a better way of describing what I'm getting at is systems and mechanisms that can be that lend themselves to being applied without prescription, because that feels to me like I have this SI palette that I can just kind of reach out and put wherever I'm going to, you know, do with what it works.
I get the idea that
Mhm.
you want to have non-normative mechanisms, basically saying things that are neutral in some regard. But I don't get why
Maybe
that
I'm
links
conflating
with.
that with something else.
I don't get what that links with SI. How that links to SI though.
Um, sure. I think that so I guess if I'm thinking about creative pursuit, which is something that I am going to be thinking about or going to be taking seriously, is like if I think about drawing something or making some kind of music or doing some kind of performance art, I want to have an arsenal of ways. I want to have an arsenal of
Nuclear weapons.
things. I don't want to have an arsenal of nuclear weapons,
Oh,
but
I
of
guessed incorrectly. Sorry.
that's okay. But of like motives, I don't know. I guess this is like sort of not really motive, but like something, or like licks. You know, if I'm
Sure.
playing
Okay.
something, I want to
Gotcha.
have these. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
And so like the way that when I'm happy is when I feel like these licks, or this lick in particular um, is useful because it can be applied in this kind of music, and it has this kind of like
Meanity.
function. Yeah. Um, or I can take this thing, this lick, and insert it somewhere else, in a way that gives it that layers some. kinds of expectations on top of each other. Um, I don't
Ladies and
know.
gentlemen, I would like you all to give a special round of applause to our special guest today, Tool Function NE. Tool
Am I
Function
included?
NE on display here,
That's me.
complete with all the disclaimers, asides,
Mm. Mhm.
qualifiers, and assorted other tangents that needed to be stuck in there to make sure we got the complete story. And I, for one, Chris Chapman, appreciate it. And I'm quite confident our audience does as well.
That's great. That's amazing. I don't know if I believe you,
I mean,
but
I
I'm
look. I
excited.
think it's great when people seem so revelatory of the truth of what we're saying about cognitive functions. You know, it's like you that's extrovert intuition tool function. It's like an INTP or an INFP. They both do this thing that you were doing throughout the whole
Hmm.
time. You know, where
Hmm.
it's important to disclaim and to prevent anticipated misreads and stuff. Like,
Hmm.
okay, well, I want to say this. However, if I say this, somebody might interpret it as this or this. So before I say this, I want to explain a qualifier that says, now look, this class of thing includes this and this, but the thing I'm talking about isn't these things. Okay?
Hmm.
So that's the. And of course, you can get into infinite tangents sometimes. Like, on occasion, imagined writing a book that goes. It just tangents down all the way to the middle and then tangents back out all the way to the end. I
Huh.
thought that would be kind of fun, you know.
That would be impressive.
It would be,
In a
yeah.
kind of a sick, sadistic way.
I don't know if it would be possible to meaningfully read.
Hmm.
I mean, because basically it's like the first thing, then you have your first sort of parenthetical. The table, which by the way was from France. France, incidentally, is a country. You know, and then you get to you get to the point of the first thing at the beginning of the second half of the book.
I think there are people that kind of fall under the spell of that and think, was it a circle the whole time? Was it really that? Was it really that? Um,
My mind is blown.
yeah, 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 yeah. Hmm.
That's so
Um,
conceptual.
yeah. I think maybe SI tool users might find that to be reputable of a thing to do
With TE
with
Dom, maybe. If it's an
okay,
impressive technical feat, a TESI user will like it.
sure.
That horrible but very difficult and technically impressive jazz. That's my thing.
Hmm.
That's the ESTJ taste right there. Okay, I'm gonna
Yeah.
wrap this up. Um, so I will publish this video as soon as I can. Cool. Yeah.
Good. Okay.
All right.
Awesome.
Cool.